This is Not Worth Living, a podcast that features creatives interviewing themselves with a preset list of questions. Unlike other podcasts that feel like conversation between friends, this one aims to feel like eavesdropping on a psychiatrist's visit. Today's episode features...
All right. Hello, this is Robert Kloss. I am a writer. I live in Chicago, Illinois, with my wife, the writer and musician Meghan Lamb, and visual artist too. She gets up to a lot of stuff. And our cat, Daniel Day-Lewis, who is a tabby. I am going to answer some questions. I'm going to answer all of them. And I know that I'm going to answer all of them because I just did them. And then I saw that my recorder here had stopped recording about 2 answers in, which is probably good because I started to get exceedingly morose answering them. And now I can kind of go through them, having expunged the moroseness. So the number one question here is, what makes me tick? And initially when I saw this question, I said to myself, there's no way I can answer that. I don't understand it. But I think I have 2 primary things that make me tick. And the one I'll focus on is this idea of writing and writing something of value. And that's been one of the it's been the primary thing that's kind of driven me since I was very young. 8 years old, something like that, even younger, I think. I always had this sense that I had to create something great. I remember when I was like 11, 12 years old writing these stories. And on one hand, I was having fun creating them. And on the other, I had this awareness that they weren't good. They weren't good enough. And it was going to be many years before I was any good. And so in the back of my mind, in the fore of my mind, that was something that always kind of drove me, and was something that I was always turning around in my mind. And now it's, well, for a while, when I was kind of in my creative prime, when thoughts came to me very easily, I would constantly come up with these ideas. But now I think it's the drive to be creative and to do the thing that makes me tick. Like, there's this anxiety to be creative. There's this anxiety to be better than what I have been. There's this anxiety to be inspired and to find inspiration, and to find inspiration that touches me in some way, that I can do something with it that nobody else has done. So that's definitely been a primary motivation, a thing that I would say makes me tick. Next question: would I open an envelope with my death date? No, I would burn it. I would have it destroyed. It would be like the murder tape of Timothy Treadwell and Grizzly Man. I would destroy it. I wouldn't want to know. And just the existence of it would be the elephant in the room. I don't want to know. So when was the first time I remember creating something intentionally? I have an awareness of doing so when I was probably 3 years old, maybe 3, 4, probably thereabouts. I don't know how old I would have been. Up until between the age of when I was like 1 or 2, up until I was 5, my parents and I and my younger brother, we lived in this trailer house in a trailer park, and we had a porch with like a concrete floor, and I remember just dozens of sheets of paper in front of me, and drawing on them with crayons, and that was like my number one fun thing. We didn't have a lot of toys back then, and so you had to be creative. And I kind of joke, but I think there's something too that there wasn't. I couldn't read. There was nothing on TV because it was 1982 during the day. And I don't know that my mother would, after Sesame Street, she probably would have let me watch anything anyway. So in order to keep myself engaged, I drew, because I couldn't write, and I had these stories that I wanted to tell. And when you're that young, you can't draw very well. Occasionally, I would ask my mother to draw things for me, just because she could. I thought she could do it really well. She's not a very good artist. Like, she's not good at drawing, but she was better than I was. But I remember drawing probably 2 main things. I drew a lot of dinosaurs because, like most kids, I like dinosaurs. And then I drew the Incredible Hulk because in the early 1980s, the TV show with Bill Bixby and Lou Ferrigno was still on the air. And that was, I fucking loved that show. That was like, I remember the excitement of a new episode coming on. I thought that was just the best show in the world. I didn't see a comic book probably until I was like an Incredible Hulk comic book until I was like 6. I had the idea that they existed, but anyway, that's what I tried to draw, and I remember doing that. And it was something I spent a lot of time on. What keeps me motivated? That's the next question. What keeps me motivated? I don't have an answer for that. I I think there's something to this idea that motivation is this kind of, that can be this mechanism that has gone haywire, and to the point where like there are no more external reasons to be motivated. When I was younger, I was motivated to become a great writer, so great that I could write the books that pleased me and make money from them, to the point that I wouldn't have to work, which would mean that I could just write. That writing would be my work. and I could devote myself to that. Which when I was younger, I had different reasons for wanting to do that than I would now. When I was younger, I had tremendous anxiety about being out in the world and being an adult human being and having a career and being around people, So I think in some ways the motivation was to kind of avoid having to like be an adult human being and to just be a literary creature in kind of a stasis. But I also wanted more eventually, I was possessed by this idea of being great enough to be successful and kind of having my greatness confirmed, whatever that means. But I guess that's the country we live in. But now looking back, it's been a while since I've had kind of those delusions. I've kind of had all of that broken in me. And so the thing that motivates me now is the motivation to be motivated and the motivation to be inspired and the motivation to make something that I recognize as worthwhile and not just doing it, but finding the motivation and the strength and the inspiration and the devotion to write something that's better than the last thing. And that's, it's relative, right? Like, I'm not saying that I have this sense of, but I have to write the greatest thing in the world. I just have to write something better than I've ever written before. It just has to be better. And so that's the thing that motivates me. And I think, like after a certain point, you hear about athletes like Michael Jordan, who after a certain point, he had titles and everyone said he was the greatest player ever. Pretty before he was 30, everyone said this, and he had multiple titles, and he manufactured things to piss himself off, to create these delusions that people were disrespecting him so that he could find the motivation to work, which is his mechanism in him that I feel like probably warped him for a long time. And I don't know if he's still as bitter as he was a few years ago, but I feel like in myself, the mechanism, thankfully I never had any success, because that would be something else to keep up with when you're just kind of competing against your previous failures. You can take your time. You don't have to hate yourself. You just have to chase that sensation that you recognize as a good thing. And so I'm always trying to find that satisfaction that's harder and harder to find. All right, next question. I think the next question, where is this? Something like, what inspires me at the moment and what's my latest project? I'm going to answer those as a single thing. The easy answer is that I don't know. But that's also very inexact because over the past 2 years, I finished this book, The Genocide House, in May of 2022, and immediately started trying to write the next thing. And I didn't have ideas necessarily, like concrete ideas. I had interests in the Kennedy assassination. I had interests in doppelgangers and doubling, conspiracy theories, the mentality of conspiracy theories, film, early film, early photography, and mass violence and images of mass violence and media replications of mass violence, and totalitarianism and genocide, American and otherwise. And these kind of collections of things that I keep adding to, and and also the Gilded Age, particularly Pullman, old Gilded Age tycoons in Chicago, and kind of like this outsized influence this they had, and how they saw the world. But yeah, so it's a lot of things that kind of come in and out of focus in my mind, and I keep adding to this pile when I feel like there's a reason to add to it, or like this is a thing that needs to be added to the stack. And maybe it's just taking a long time to figure out how it all fits together, and maybe it doesn't. And I'm gonna have to like keep going with the thing not working for a while longer until I move on to something else. But essentially, the idea is that I keep chasing inspiration, I keep working at it, and eventually something will come out of it. And until that point, I don't know what I'm working on. I'm working on a thing that I may or may not be working on tomorrow, because I've started and restarted different approaches in about as many different ways of approaching something, as many different angles as I could think of, trying to find the way in, and getting a few hundred words, few thousand words, 10,000 words, 50 words, these, I have all of these kind of aborted files, aborted projects on my computer that may or may not cohere at some point. So that's, I'm working on, the project I'm working on right now is really getting frustrating, because after a point, you start to wonder if finding the motivation to do more than just like keep doing it, and finding the motivation to work that bit harder, and to make those sacrifices to, when I'm teaching 9 classes semester, find that motivation to actually like be able to create something, and to make it good. So it gets harder. A lot of times I worry that I'm just doing it because I enjoy the act of doing it. And so that's a concern. And I guess that's part of the other question as well. If money was no object, what would be my dream project? Money was no object, I'd retire. I'd work on writing. And I'd see, one of the things the older I get, I'm 45 now, I'll be 46 in about half a year, almost half a year. And I'll be 50 before I know it, and so on and so on. The time goes so fast now, and I've started to become aware of this idea that I'll never know how good I could have been as a writer. Like, if fate had thrown me a slightly different bit of fortune, and I had been one of these people that I kind of like to joke about hating, who don't have to work. And I could have just devoted myself to this thing. Would I become good or not? So I would do that, and I would do anything that I would also use the money to facilitate getting better. So whatever that would involve. And there are a lot of things that have to go into writing something and to becoming better at something. But it would be either the thing I'm trying to write now or the next thing. That's what I would invest in. Is there a quote or motto that I work by? Stay true to the dreams of thy youth. That's, or be true to the, I misremember it now. I used to have it, somewhere that I could see at all times. Herman Melville had it carved into his desk, the years after his writing career had imploded, and he was working something drove him to work incredibly hard and push himself, even though he had no reason to think that anyone would ever see his poems or that they would ever see Billy Budd, and they almost didn't. So I think about that, just to not give up on whatever it was that I felt when I was young. And the older I get, young takes on a different meaning. But yeah. I used to have a other motto that I would keep in my pocket, in my wallet. It said something like, write the book only you can write. And then I wrote this book, A Light No More, and I threw it away because I felt like I'd accomplished it. It's interesting. Little moments of satisfaction. Would you be friends with yourself? No. I'm fascinated by doppelgangers and by doubles, and the idea of coming across another iteration of myself, an exact replica, a superior version, a smarter, charming version, a more accomplished version, or maybe a lesser version. No matter what, I think I would have to kill it. Like I'm not even joking. I would have to. I would not. I would not be friends with it, and those things very rarely work out in literature or film. This is a thing that we tend to, well, I don't know. Maybe it's different now in the age of social media where we're surrounded by iterations of ourselves, but um, I, uh, I would not like it. What do I do differently from other people? I have no idea what people do. I really don't. Um, yeah, that's the one I don't know how to answer. Like, if somebody like people do things in all sorts of crazy fucking ways. It's like they used to have the television commercial about how do you eat the cookie. How do you eat an Oreo? And everybody's like, oh, I do these weird things with it. And I take it that probably people do eat Oreos in all sorts of oddball ways. People, especially the normal ones, do things probably in exceedingly strange ways. So I don't think I do anything differently than anyone. Maybe you mean that in a creative sense, like what do I do as a writer differently from other people? And I don't really have a sense of that either. I try not to write the way most people write because I would say like 99.9% of the books written in this country aren't worth being written. And I try to write one of them that is. So probably that, told my books are eccentric. I write differently than other people. And the best people do, I think, which is not the way of saying that I'm one of the best people, but the writers I admire, they're all unique. They're all recognizable right away. You look at their work and you recognize them. You recognize something of their soul in there. And only one person could have written that book. And what would I like my epitaph to say? I don't particularly care. I used to be driven by this idea of posthumous fame and writing for posterity. My friend, who's much more successful than I am at writing, would joke that she was writing for fame now or success now, and I was writing for posterity, that my works would last. I don't think either of us necessarily believe that, but it makes it easier to talk about writing with somebody and to be friendly with somebody whose work is they just operate on a different universe in terms of publishing and things like that. But I used to, the Melville fixation, part of it was this idea of posterity and posthumous recognition. But the older I get, I feel like, the less likely it is that'll happen. I could see the way things work a little more clearly, or the likelihood of something like that happening. I understand the values of the country that I live in, and I understand how very likely we're going to get to read less, and I don't know what people do with their spare time, but they're going to do more of that. So, I think it's unreasonable to want to be remembered in that way. But if I had to choose something, and not an epitaph, because there would be nowhere to put it. But I would say I would want to be remembered as a great writer, which is a thing that you talk about motivation before. I guess that is a thing that drives me still. Less and less so, as you might imagine from how I'm answering this question, because I feel it's less, less realistic because of what I'm capable of and my awareness of what I'm capable of and how much I never hit the mark. And I'm unlikely at my age to get good enough to hit the mark. The better I get, the more I realize how far I am from the things that I want to do. But also because I don't think that there's going to be 40 people who read. Just like there's going to be the outside of like scholars, and maybe this is a rambling answer. I'm just going to say posthumous literary fame. He was a great writer. However that happens, whatever. But I've always kind of liked stories about people who were admired and loved after they were dead, who were kind of reviled or forgotten or dismissed while they were alive. But I also always recognized that the tragedy of that, irony of that. It's not like Orson Welles knew that he was going to have posthumous glory. It didn't make him any happier in life, and it doesn't help him in death. That's true of a great many wonderful creative figures in the history of the art. So that's my answer. It doesn't really matter, but fuck it. I'll try anyway, and who knows?